Hi, folks. I got to tell you about the guy walking backwards. I met a guy today walking backwards. It was it's not that fascinating, but still, I like the story. I like meeting people like that. But first, we're doing two experiments tonight. Okay, two experiments. One experiment is not an experiment, a test. A test. A test is this whiskey. This is a Swedish whiskey. Marcos gave it to me, and it's Mackmyra Brooks whiskey. It's from a well-known Swedish distillery named Mackmyra. Marcos gave me a tasting set, which is in this cool box, and this was, this one, right? This one. And we already tried this one. And so this is the second one we're trying, Mackmyra, and we're gonna do this in this glass, and this glass has metal ice cubes. I got these metal ice cubes in a kind of some kind of funky weird promotion event thing with you buy this bottle of whiskey and you get this and I put them in the freezer, and so of course the idea is that it makes the whiskey cold without melting into it. Okay, good, but so we'll see. We're going to try this out. That's the experiment, and we're going to try this, and then we're going to talk about the guy walking backwards. Okay, this is a good. I like the other whiskey I already tried. It was a good whiskey. This smells good. Smells like a good whiskey. It smells like your basic whiskey, not too. These usually, when you have whiskey, the ice cubes float to the top, and these of course, being of metal, they stay down. Okay, let's try it. It's a good whiskey. It's a good whiskey. It doesn't have an aggressive personality. It's not like something like, I always say Lagavulin or something, one of these really peaty, strong, smoky, and it's not like that at all. It's also not like a Springbank or a Highland Park, which is fruity and, so it's kind of like Swedes. Swedes used to be the Vikings. When I'm Swedish, right? My mother came from Swedish stock, right? So I'm, I have respect for the Swedes, but this is not a Viking whiskey. Swedes are no longer Vikings. They are a nice kind of a they've reached a good average, kind of a good middle ground, and they're good people. They're nice, and they have a sense of generally a sense of of self-irony, and we just watched recently this week, in fact, because the Tom Hanks movie coming out, A Man Named whatever, the Tom Hanks movie, Earl or Arnold or something. I don't know what the title is at the time, but it's based on a Swedish movie or a Scandinavian movie. Maybe it's Norwegian or Danish. I think it's Swedish though. Called A Man Named Ove, and so because we knew that this Tom Hanks movie was coming out and it was based on an early Swedish original, we looked it up on, I think, Apple or something, and we got the original, and it's a really good movie. You should watch the movie, A Man Named Ove, Ove, and it's I think we watched it with a German dubbing, but it's a really good movie. It's sweet, it's human, it's a little bit depressing. It's about death and the disappointments of life, but also life reaffirming in that way. It's a good movie, and so I'm looking forward to the Tom Hanks movie. It's supposed to be very similar. I'm sure it's also good. Tom Hanks is perfect for the role, but the original it's a good movie, and so that's Swedish, and but they're not Vikings. And this whiskey, it's a good whiskey, but it's not, it doesn't shoot you in the head, It doesn't axe you. It doesn't take an axe and split your skull. It doesn't, rape you. It doesn't pillage you. It doesn't steal your, the bones of the holy Saint Sebastian out of your chapel. It doesn't. That's not what it does. But it still a good whiskey. I would drink it. But I'm kind of mixed on these middle cubes because the middle cubes they clank more than clink. The ice cubes. If you have an ice cubes in a drink, they tinkle. They tinkle. But these middle cubes clink. It's like a robot making you a whiskey, which I would take whiskey from a robot. But still, it's not tinkling. It's not the tinkle. The tinkle is like the beautiful girl making your whiskey and putting the ice cubes in it. And this is the robot making the whiskey. So I guess it's okay. I mean, I can live with it. It doesn't water down the whiskey. I get those my speakers turning off. It doesn't water down the whiskey, which is I guess the point. But I don't mind watered down whiskey because there's more to drink. But this clink, it's I don't know. Jury's out. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, here the man walking backwards. So I went out. Most mornings I go out for a walk in a park here called Zuidgelände, and it's a long park. You walk down, it's beautiful, and you walk back, and you get a little fresh air, and so I'm walking down there, and as I'm going down this path, I'm getting closer and closer to a guy in like a blue, hood, tunic, rain jacket. And I can see his face, but he's walking away from me. He's walking backwards. And you can tell every once in a while he concentrates. He's getting feet as he walks backwards. He gets a feeling he's getting off path until he looks around where he is and he corrects his path. So he's going straight along the line, not bumping into anything, and it goes and closer, and he's just sitting there, and he's just walking backwards. And I talked to him, and I asked him, why are you walking backwards? And he explained, because walking backwards, it uses different muscles. You use different muscles, and so it exercises different muscles, and so which may be true. I don't know if it's true or not. Maybe. But he was a guy who, elevated clearly the principle of muscle exercise over the principle of looking ridiculous, of course, which I respect. And he was an old guy, like me, and those are the old guys who would do walks. They walk. Old guys do that. And I asked him, you know what? Have you got a life lesson for me? Have you got a wisdom for me? And because I've been trying to, for the TikTok channel, I've been trying to, interview or doing short mini interviews with Germans and Germans in Berlin, asking them, what have you learned in life? What are your life lessons? And they say, in 1 minute, they say one sentence, and I put that on TikTok. And so I asked him, and he didn't want to be on TikTok. He didn't want to be on social media, so I didn't record it. But he said, if you look for God, you will find him. He just said it. Do you have a life before I mentioned TikTok, I said, do you have a life lesson for me? Lebensweisheit, life wisdom of life. You gather, and we all gather wisdom in some form or another. I mean, we're not stupid. Even the simplest of us, the most, uneducated, right? The guys who are not philosophers, they go through life and they think about life. They think about what life is and who they are. And even, if you're 5 years old, you have some kind of opinion. And when you're 15 years old, you have a different opinion. When you're 30 years old, you have a different opinion. Everyone has something to say about life. And so I kind of like to, if I feel like I can talk to a guy, I ask him, what is your life lesson? What is your life, the wisdom? What wisdom can you tell me that you gather in life? And this guy said, if you look for God, you will find him. And he had looked for God, and I talked to him a little bit more. 2 minutes. I didn't want to get involved in conversation. It was about Jesus Christ, and he was an older guy, so he's heading toward death, and maybe his life didn't turn out the way it was meant to be, like all of us, right? And it was interesting, but he didn't want to be on social media, so I didn't record him. I don't know his name, or I can't tell you his face, of course, but the guy walking backwards had an important lesson for all of us. If you look for God, you will find him. I haven't read a book by Phillip Roth for a long time. Phillip Roth is a guy who, when we talk about writing, when we teach writing, and I teach writing, of course, I tell my students, show, don't tell, right? Show something that's happening, the action that's happening, and don't talk about it like a Wikipedia, article. Show the reader what is going on. But Phillip Roth, of course, is only talk. He's just babbles on and on. He's just he doesn't show anything. He basically, if you took everything he showed, every scene he described, and cut them out of the book and put them together, it would be 10 pages long. And in fact, the book I'm reading is, which I never read before, I don't know why, but is The Human Stain. Okay, and it's a great book, and you could take the actual plot of the book, the actual story, and reduce it really down to 10 pages. It's 5 pages. It's a short story, basically. And then so he goes and says something's happening here, and something may happen soon. Death may come, violence may come, some disaster may come. We're warding off disaster. But listen to me, folks. I have there's a Vietnam vet, and he has PTSD, and I'm going to tell you about what this vet is thinking. And he goes like 10 pages. I'm listening to the audiobook, so I don't know how many pages. But he goes on, 10 pages talking in the head of this guy, this Vietnam vet who, beats his wife, and I think, I'm not quite done with, but I think he eventually kills the wife and the professor Coleman Silk, who is having sex with his wife or his ex-wife, and so you're in the head of this guy, and it's a great description of being in the head of this guy because you think, he's right, fuck these guys, fuck the government, fuck the police, fuck the neighbors, fuck the wife, I did, so I beat her, okay, so I didn't beat her enough, and you're saying, oh yeah, that makes sense, so this horrible person that we, it's the wife beater, right? So we're supposed to hate him. He's evil. He's like the devil. Like you're reading the Bible, and the devil is a wife beater, right? So you don't like that. You're being told in church the wife beater is the bad guy, but you're reading this and you're thinking, oh, well, that makes sense to me. And it's really, and we're living in a world now that we don't really do that very often. We talk about how life should be and how human beings should be, and human beings should be good and should be, right. And there should be, we're all racist and we have to strive not to be racist. And we're all, wife beaters. We have to strive not to be wife beaters. And we're all bad and we have to strive to be good, and we have to give our privilege back, and we have to, But the real writer, of course, describes humanity as humanity really is. We talk a good talk about how we should be, and we pretend to be something that we're not, and we even imagine that we're something that we're not. But in fact, we're all a bunch of bastards trying to get through life, and we're willing to kill anyone to get some kind of satisfaction out of life, or to get out of the horrors and the traps and the desperation, the terror of life. I mean, I understood this guy, and I understand all these guys, and I understood Coleman Silk, the professor, and the thing is, the great thing about the story, it's a great story, and I see myself in this character, and you can tell that it's a good book if you see yourself in the main character. And this main character, Coleman Silk, he is actually black, meaning he comes from somehow, what they would call, in the book he says Negro, because the book goes back to the 50s, right? So he's black, but his skin is white. So because there's been so many whites in, grandfathers and all this, and interracial marriage and all this, that he turned out fairly white. You could not, if he comes up to you, you could not tell that he's actually black, which is a weird thing to say, because if your skin is white, it's white. But if you see then your parents and your parents are black, then you say, oh, you're actually black, even though you're white, which of course is nonsense and craziness. And it shows you how idiotical this definition of humanity by race is, by skin color is. And we're into this thing nowadays where we define everyone by the skin color. You're either white or you're black. If you're good, it's because of your skin color. If you're bad, it's because it's just, God, what a horrible turn this world has taken. But anyway, okay, so the whole, as the story develops, the whole thing is about him trying to determine his own life. Because we all grow up, and whether you're black or white, your life is determined for you. You grow up and you go to church, and you learn in church that you're supposed to be this way or that way. And so he was theoretical black. He thought of himself as black, but then he realized he could pass himself off for white. So he didn't have to have this restrictions of being black. He didn't have to let society determine that he was black and tell him what category he belongs to. And so he said, I'm going to take the chance. If I don't have to accept what society, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be white. And so his whole, and then he has to live with the lie, of course. He marries a Jewish woman who doesn't know that he's actually black. He cannot introduce the Jewish woman to his family because then she would know. So he has to invent a story about the family. They died in the war. I don't know what it is. And so all his life is kind of a lie, but the lie helps him define who he is himself, by himself. He will not let society define who he is. And so then at some point he uses a word, spooks, which means ghost, but also means black guy. It's a derogatory word for some, and he uses it, without thinking about it, for ghost, and a black guy gets insulted, and of course it's exactly like today. This is written in the 90s, 97, 98, or something like that. But it's, of course, it's the same thing. It's our woke culture, where if you say something that can be interpreted as racist, someone will come along and take the opportunity to interpret it as racist. And so that's what happened, and he loses everything he has. His reputation is shot. Everything he's worked on, it's gone. His life is destroyed just because some, person took the opportunity to complain. And so here again, society is telling him who he is. Society is telling him that he's a racist and that he takes up an affair with a younger woman, and he cannot have this affair. And he's fighting constantly against society, telling him who he is. But when I read about this one thing where he realizes that he doesn't have to be black if he doesn't want to be. He has the opportunity, the chance to be white. And not to be white in the sense of to have this privilege, but to be white in the sense of not being defined as black. So it's the negative thing, not black. You could be anything. You could be Chinese, but you're not black. You're not defined in this role. And he freed himself. He liberated himself from being black, from being defined by society. And that is freedom. It's freedom. It's not bad whiskey. It's pretty good whiskey. It's a pretty good whiskey. Good Swedish whiskey. I've thought a lot about freedom in my life. I grew up on the tail end of the hippies. I was a generation after the hippies. My big brother was the hippie generation, and the hippies, of course, always talked about freedom. Freedom. And I always wondered what that is. What is freedom? Because it's freedom, when you're married, you're married, you're always dissatisfied. Anything you do, you're dissatisfied, right? So you're married and you have a wife who loves you, and you're building up a life, but you want to have sex with a secretary, and if you were free, you could do that. So freedom means, what does freedom mean? Having sex with someone. And if you think about it, this word freedom is this big, huge word. It's it's freedom. If we romanticize it, it's larger than life, this word, but we don't really know what it means. And so we think, what does freedom mean? Well, freedom means being able to have sex with your secretary. Well, you can have sex with your secretary. If the wife finds out, she might divorce you. She might not find out. But are you still free? Are you free, or just having sex with a secretary? That's you can, and if you're 18 or 19, 17, 16, and you living in the suburbs and you're listening to heavy metal music, and you think, I want to be free. And what does that mean? Free, you drop out of school? Is that being free? Is that freedom? Or is it just, losing your chances of making, having a good income in life? Is that freedom? You quit your job and you go to Mexico and you own a bar on a beach in Mexico and you work on a boat, and someday you're going to get in the boat and, go out into the ocean. Is that freedom? I don't know. Once you get that bar going, every night you're doing the receipts, and then there's going to be some woman, and the woman you're going to need sex, and you're going to want romance and companionship, and the woman's going to have a baby, and you're going to have, and you're not, what is freedom? And I've always wondered what that is. And there have been times in my life when I have been free, like after the end of a relationship, or in fact, much of my life has been trying for freedom, because I left my family, Hawaii, to get away from, this crushing society that I was in, the family, church, all this, and I went to Germany, and I was freed of this American family life. Of America and of family. I guess the family was more important than the stronger, thing that I had to get free of. And then at some point I got free of the church. I left the church, my religion. I left the religion and I was free of that. And at some point I got divorced and I was free of that. But, it wasn't that much different from being not free, frankly. I mean, it wasn't, maybe it's because I didn't go off to, Mexico or Spain and, run a bar on a beach somewhere. Maybe that was it. I don't know. I didn't know what freedom was. And now when you get older, of course, after a certain age, you're 50, 60, society doesn't really need you, and so and your wife, she could take you, she could leave you, it's not really that much of a thing anymore. And your kids don't have that much contact with you. If they call you at your home where you're living with your wife, what's the difference between that and they call you on Christmas in your apartment, your one-room apartment where you eat TV dinners on Christmas? To them it's the same thing, right? So you can do what you want. Your commitments, your responsibilities become such that you don't have to do them anymore when you're older, when you're my age. And I realized this recently, a couple of years ago, I talked to a friend of mine. And I realized that I could do anything I want. I realized that I'm really free. I can disappear today and nothing bad would happen. I could go off and get, one of my childish, young man kind of dreams was, going through a Morocco with a backpack, the lone wolf on the road to adventure. And I could do that. I didn't have so much money that I could stay in big hotels, but, I'd get by. I could do what I want. I can quit. And also I'm a freelancer. I've never or seldom had a job that I have really to go 9 to 5, that I have to be responsible to a boss, do what the boss says. I'm free of that. I've freed myself of that. I have freed myself of a lot of things in life. But what is it? What is being free? It's just not having a steady income. That's all it is. It's strange, It's like you think of the cavemen. The cavemen, they got together and they formed, they built up a society, and they said, okay, look, we're not gonna wander through the steppes anymore. We're gonna have agriculture, and the guy is gonna stay with one woman and raise the children and protect the woman, bring the mammoth meat back to the woman so we can raise the children, and we're gonna do that, and we're gonna trade in our freedom for a stable society. There's always I recently read a book about primates, and primates, the male, often in many primate societies, not all, but when the young primate is cast out of the group, and then he's a lone primate. He has no group. The first thing he does is not, get a backpack and wander through Morocco and write poetry, about being free in a man's world. He doesn't do that. And the first thing he does is go to another society, another group, and beg to get in. And that's what we did, as cavemen or something. We decided, we're going to trade in the freedom for the stability of society. And so then now we have the society, and we regret it because we want that freedom, but we don't want it enough because, we want the monthly check, right? So, but we romanticize it and we write pop songs about it, and we don't really know what it is. But freedom is cowardice. It's not engaging with another person and forming a family. It's avoiding having children so you don't have that responsibility. It's being a freelancer like I am, instead of getting a job and contributing to a corporation that doesn't care about you, and living in the suburbs and suffering by living in the suburbs and having a part of your manhood chopped off in order to have children, send the children off to college. It's leaving the church, leaving religion, leaving what you believe in, to believe in nothing. Which, why is that better than believing in something? I think now that freedom is a form of cowardice, and maybe it's a form of joyful cowardice. Maybe it's a form of cowardice that can be romanticized and that you can enjoy for a short time before you run out of money in Morocco and there are no more bananas in your backpack, and the girl who thought because you were a rich American and got pregnant, wants a passport. I don't know why I don't know. Maybe the problem with society is not that we're not free, but that we insist on romanticizing something that we don't actually want. Okay, anyway, good. So the Swedish Whisky is good, but it's not a kick in the head, and the metal cubes are they work, but they don't clink. No, they don't. They're not sexy. They clatter, but they don't clink. Okay, and freedom, I don't know, maybe I just have the wrong feeling about freedom. Maybe I don't understand it. Maybe I will someday, when I'm truly free of all these earthly binds. Okay, folks, it's Friday night. I hope you guys are okay. I hope you guys had a good week. I hope you guys have a nice weekend. I hope you guys are doing something great in your life and doing something fulfilling and satisfying in your life that makes you happy and makes you joyful and is good for you and fills your soul with a feeling of satisfaction that you can look back on your life and say, that was a good thing. Good night.